Walmart Plus members save on meeting up with friends. Save on having them over for dinner with free delivery with no hidden fees or markups. That's groceries, plus napkins, plus that vegetable chopper to make things a bit easier. Plus, members save on gas to go meet them in their neck of the woods. Plus, when you're ready for the ultimate sign of friendship, start a show together with your included Paramount Plus subscription. Walmart Plus members save on this plus so much more. Start a 30-day free trial at walmartplus.com. Paramount Plus Essential Plan only. Separate registration required. See Walmart Plus terms and conditions.
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Is your game about to start?
Yeah, it started. We're in the top, just recently started, top of the second inning. Looks like we're up to bat. The kid just hit a double, scored a run, so we're up 2-1.
Oh, very nice.
Well, during the
play-by-play.
During the podcast, every couple of minutes we'll ask you, if there's been a score or anything like that. That'll be fine.
There you go.
It is time for episode 5 of the Doomsday podcast, and Ed Werder alongside Matt Mosley here in whatever part of Dallas we're in. We're sort of Swiss Avenue. Man,
we don't want people coming over, so don't be too specific.
I'm not going to get too specific, but
I don't want to fight my way through the crowd to the studio.
Always good to be at Swiss Avenue, beautiful part of Dallas.
Protesters couldn't ask.
And we today have something very special in store for you, and as usual, one of Ed's big-name friends has come through. Doug Pederson, head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, will be joining us. And Ed, just so our listeners and our subscribers, and boy, we appreciate all you folks who are subscribing on iTunes.
We should let people know that this still is a free service.
Not
because,
for long.
Well, when you say subscribers, I think people get the idea that they have to buy something.
But
all you have to do is buy the concept that we can actually entertain and inform people for a very brief period of time on a weekly basis. That's all you have to believe in.
You try to apply your technical knowledge to others, and that's a mistake. When I say subscribe to iTunes, nobody thinks, oh, do we have to pay? Most everybody, I would say 97% of people who hear that go,
anybody who's around you socially expects they have to pay, not only for themselves, but whatever they have to cover for you. So
that's the truth.
So I think that it is worth an explanation to let people know that they do not have to pay.
What I want to say to everyone who
why are your hands raised? You're like evangelical.
Nobody cares.
Is this something
is
this your Baylor background
again? If this helps
again?
me in my delivery, you don't need to share what I'm doing with anybody.
I'll judge whether anything could help this delivery, but go ahead.
But I want, as we go throughout this year, this is a Cowboys podcast. This is the Doomsday podcast. But we also know that Cowboys fans care about what's happening around the rest of the league, but mainly the division. And so from time to time, we're going to visit with some of the rival voices, some of the writers, some of the, obviously, coaches, players.
Are there still writers?
They do have a few, even some of these newspapers.
They had a recent layoff at the Star-Telegram, I know.
Yeah, that's a tough deal, too. And in fact, Dwayne and Shireen are great friends of ours, and I think we'll probably have Shireen on at some point, talk a little NFL with her, which would be good.
I left there in '89, just in the nick of time.
You barely got out, but they got you in the end. It was just a different place. I want to continue, though, to think about these other teams. And again, this will be Cowboys intensive, but we found out recently when Ed Werder talks about his career or some things that are going on, there are people in Philly who are very interested. There are people in Washington. There are people that are Giants fans. And by the way, all those fan bases, I would say the Philly is pretty parochial, provincial, I might say. Washington,
hostile, I might say.
Washington fans are a little more spread out around the country. Giants fans, I'll say Giants fans are even more spread out than Washington fans. Cowboys fans are a different animal. They're spread out all over the world. Yeah. They are everywhere. But we want to be a place where a lot of people can come and not, you can hear about the NFC. So I think it's important to say all that. And Ed, your ties and my ties. I'd like to have one of those right now. My tie.
I don't wear them anymore. Oh, you
no,
a drink.
That was a drink joke. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, you went another place. That's okay.
I do that.
I want this to be sort of a place where a lot of people feel comfortable. And
you're so inclusive. That's so popular now.
I want this to be a safe space.
Oh my God.
I really do. And so, Ed,
How long is my contract? Can I resign after 5 shows?
You were just the same one I'm on, like a 10-day. It's an NBA 10-day contract. Ed, what is your? Now, how did you get to know Doug Pederson? By the way, just by reporting on him. Did you know him as a player and then as a coach, or just as an assistant coach? I mean.
Well, I had a pretty good relationship with Brett Favre, especially toward the end of his career, and obviously Doug
Pederson. You're being modest. You were very close to Brett. In fact, he would try to tell you what suit he wanted you to wear to specific games.
He just didn't want me to wear a blue suit because he thought I always wore a blue suit. So I asked him one time on a conference call, okay, I'm covering one of your games this week. What color suit do you want me to wear? And he said cheddar, okay? Cheddar. Well, who has a cheddar suit other than somebody in De Pere? So I wore sort of an autumnal color, I'll say. I thought it was kind of brown. So I walk out pregame and I say to him, so what do you think? And he goes, that's not cheddar. And I said, it's not blue. That's the point. So I got to know him because he was Favre's backup in Green Bay. And
Doug Pederson, yeah.
Yeah, Doug Pederson. And then sort of as he went to Kansas City and became an offensive assistant under Andy Reid there, he was the offensive coordinator, didn't call plays until he got the head coaching job in Philadelphia last year, which is interesting. Andy gave him some opportunities, as head coaches sometimes do, for coaches who they believe are going to have an opportunity to be head coaches in the future. But Doug would be a guy who would come out before the game quite early and chat football, and it didn't have to be about his team, and often it wasn't. He would ask me about things and so forth. When he was with the Eagles as an Andy Reid assistant, kind of the same thing. He was out early, as was I. Not as early as me when I was in TV. I mean, I'd be out at 7 o'clock in the morning for a 3:30 kick. I'm not saying he was out that early.
I never saw you there that early.
Yeah, well, you don't get up before 3.
Well, without further ado, here is the head coach, our interview with the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, Doug Pederson.
The Doomsday podcast continuing its line of phenomenal guests, whether it's Dak Prescott one week or Wade Phillips the next, now brings you the second-year head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, Doug Pederson, who happens to be watching his son Joel play a 9th grade baseball game. I guess he's a pitcher and a first baseman. He's left-handed. Is that correct, Doug?
That is correct. He's a southpaw. He's a lefty.
So he can be hopelessly average and have a long major league career.
Exactly right.
So the fastball is something you know well, and from a football point of view. Is his fastball more like yours or more like Favre's?
He probably leans more towards Favre's. Mine kind of tailed off a little bit, where Brett's kind of stayed nice and tight. So it leans more towards Favre's.
Hopefully his general conduct is more like yours, but
the actual on-play conduct is more like mine. That's correct too. Yes.
It's a winning combination. Hey, so let's talk about the NFC East and the Cowboys and the Eagles. And one of the interesting parallels between the two franchises is both had rookie starting quarterbacks last year. You made the big trade to position yourselves to get Carson Wentz at 2. The Cowboys took Dak Prescott in the 4th round. To what extent did Carson exceed or meet your expectations as a rookie?
Well, go all the way back to opening weekend, and we made the big blockbuster trade with Minnesota, with Sam Bradford and all that, and basically Carson only had one preseason game that he played, and then he's thrust into action, and he's the starter from day one, and I kind of knew going in that there might be a few bumps in the road dealing with a first year starter, just handling the day-to-day business of being the face of your franchise, from media requests to fans to dealing with ticket requests from family, and practicing and preparing for games on Sunday. There's a lot of things you can pull at you, and he Carson is a pro's pro. He handles his business extremely well for a young player. I think much like a Dak Prescott in Dallas, who from the outside looking in appears to be doing the same thing. So it's exciting to watch these young guys play, especially in our division of the NFC East. and hopefully this will be a battle for many years to come.
Do you see it shaping up that way, that either Dak Prescott or Carson Wentz is going to own the division for the most part for maybe the next decade?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, you look at the NFC East the last couple of, over the last few years, the decades, and you can Tony Romo's been in there for many years with Eli Manning, and now you got kind of the young quarterbacks coming in, even with in Washington with Kirk Cousins is a relatively young quarterback, and with Dallas and with Dak, and we got Carson, and the Giants still have a great quarterback in Eli Manning, and really this is a division I think that all four teams have the guys they want, and that's something you can build your teams around.
How amazed were you? And we're talking to Doug Pederson, the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, while he watches his son Joel. It is the Doomsday podcast. Ed Werder, Matt Mosley. When you watch Doug, Dak, who we just talked to last Wednesday for this podcast, what impressed you the most, and how rare for people that haven't played the position like you have in the NFL is it to see a guy play at that level right away, especially given where he was taken?
The biggest thing and the thing that's the most impressive with Dak Prescott is how he handled himself on and off the football field. He felt like that, and he understood this right away, that he didn't have to win the game for them. He knew that he had a good defense. He had a tremendous offensive line, a great runner. He had some veteran players that he could rely on, and he learned that early as soon as he had the opportunity to play, and that was early in from day one. And that's something that a young quarterback sometimes takes him a while to figure out the game that way, and that's the impressive thing, is he learned to handle that business that well, utilize the people around him, and understand that he didn't have to go win the game.
How much do you focus in the offseason as a head coach, and obviously Jim Schwartz doing it from the defensive end, but how much time do you spend trying to prepare for a quarterback like that in his second year, knowing you have more time now to look at all that tape and be ready for him? How much do you zero in on something like that?
And he's a dynamic player who can hurt you running the football as well as throwing the football.
Well, and that's the thing. He's got so much athletic talent to beat you with his legs, beat you with his arm. And so, early in the spring, you spend time looking at your division opponents. And we did split with the Cowboys last year, albeit the last game of the season, they were in the postseason, and really they weren't really playing for much. But still, you look at that and you have an opportunity to really study your opponents and sort of fine-tune what you're doing. And, we have to get better offensively and defensively. So we look at that, but at the same time, we focus more about, on us as the Eagles and how can we get better, coming up this season.
What did you honestly think when Romo suffered that back injury that basically ended his career with the Cowboys for all intents and purposes, and heard that they were going to go with a fourth-round rookie? What were your immediate thoughts about the likelihood that would succeed?
Well, obviously it was, we had basically the same situation. Just we didn't have Sam Bradford just didn't get hurt, in a preseason game, but so we kind of had that same reality hit us. And I think from, I know from our, and just I can speak from our standpoint that obviously we were excited. I know Carson was the number 2 pick overall in last year's draft, but they had a lot of confidence in Dak, and it's something that they must have seen obviously in the offseason. They saw it obviously in training camp and saw the maturity there and his ability to lead. So I think that's something that they as Jason Garrett and their coaching staff felt comfortable with Dak. And again, it goes back to, he didn't have to win the game for him. And that's something that, Jason's played the position, and he knows how to manage that spot. And so credit to coaching staff for getting him ready to play that way.
An interesting thing you said about Dak and Carson Wentz, when you said that Dak knew he didn't have to win the games himself, he had veteran players that could help him. You've kind of seemingly concentrated in acquiring some key veterans yourself on offense. at a time when people might be a little confused about that, because it would seem like if you have a young quarterback, you want guys to grow with him at the running back and wide receiver positions, but you just signed LeGarrette Blount and you signed Torrey Smith. What was your mindset or your philosophy in that approach?
Well, first thing and first and foremost, our philosophy is still to build through the draft and acquire young talent. That's something that we, Howie and Joe Douglas, myself, Mr. Lurie, those are things that we still believe in, and the way to really build your rosters, obviously through the draft. So that's the first thing. But secondly, you got to address some needs, and you come out of the season and you focus on your roster, and you're going to lose some good players to free agency off of your own roster, and you're going to have to somehow replace those guys. And Alshon Jeffrey, Torrey Smith were sitting there. We had opportunities to get those two guys, and it was obvious last year we were young at the wide receiver position, and we needed some leadership, some veteran presence there, and we went out and got that with Torrey and Alshon. So we still want to build through the draft. We still want to acquire that young talent. LeGarrette Blount now is a guy that gives us that big back running back that can come in and compete, and hopefully he does everything he did in New England the last couple of seasons. He had 18 rushing touchdowns for over 1,000 yards, and we just expect that same level of performance here.
And I am curious, you having been, you've seen Packers fans, you see Chiefs fans, these are all great fans, but having now had that front row view as both a player and a coach with the Eagles, can you sort of talk about the difference between an Eagles fan and a Cowboys fan in your mind, since you've kind of experienced it from several different vantage points now?
Yeah, I think obviously they're very similar. Very passionate for their organizations, very passionate for their teams. We had a chance to kind of showcase that this year with the NFL draft being in Philadelphia. It was exciting to see our fan base and kind of the spirited rivalries that you saw when the Cowboys were on the clock, the Giants were on the clock, the Redskins on the clock. So, you got to see our fans. I think that's the same way in Dallas. There's fans everywhere. They travel well when they're on the road. They pack that stadium out every Sunday, every home game. I know they're proud. They're proud to support their team and their organization, and they've done a great job that way. One
of the big issues in the NFL is concussions. It seemed like Ben Roethlisberger was kind of seen as a poster child for a culture change in this regard, in that he made it more acceptable for even big star players to admit they had a concussion, which is because of the protocol. The team sort of loses control of when that player comes back. And so teams are reluctant to put players in the concussion protocol because of that. And yet Roethlisberger seemingly made it somewhat accessible. And then Gisele Bündchen, who happens to be married to Tom Brady, mentioned in a recent interview that he had a concussion last year that apparently never appeared on an injury report, never kept him out of a game. And now Drew Brees says, well, that'll never happen to me because I won't tell even my wife if I have a concussion. Where do you think we are in terms of how players approach this type of injury, given what it means to the NFL right now and maybe the future of football?
Well, I think number one, the protocol that's in place with concussions and having the spotters, up in the booth, up in the box on game day, you're seeing a lot more. Honestly, you're seeing a lot more of the players self-reporting. We all know the league's trying to eliminate, as many of the upper neck and head hits as they can. But at the same time, I think we're seeing more of the player being more aware of it and policing themselves, and that's what you're seeing throughout the season. And I think it's all about we're dealing with player safety. Our game is about the players, and if we don't have players, you don't have a game. I think the protocols in place are working. We just got to continue to educate our players, educate our fans, educate even the youth of America that concussions are a part of our game, but at the same time, we're taking steps to eliminate or at least be out in front of helping these players not only recover, but recover and get back on the field as soon as possible.
It is the Doomsday Podcast. Eagles head coach Doug Pederson. He's out at a baseball game for his son, which is all the wind you hear. But
his son's pitching, so hopefully the wind's blowing in.
What is the score, by the way, Doug?
It's blowing out towards left field, so we got us a pretty good game right now. It's a 3-2 game. We had bases loaded last inning and only scored one run, but we're hanging in there. It's 3-2.
Sounds a lot like my Atlanta Braves.
Bottom of the third right now.
Are you able to blend in sort of as a parent? Do you get sort of aggressive? You know, you got that coach's voice. You're used to hollering, or do you almost try to just be a dad and not get too vocal? What is it like for you out there?
Yeah, this is our second time back to Morristown. Our oldest son graduated from Morristown High School, and so, when I worked for Coach Reed in Philadelphia not too long ago, and so being back, we came back to the same community, and we got an out at home plate, nice play.
Like it.
And so having been here before, a lot of the parents that we're with at the games, our kids grew up, and my son Joel, who's a freshman now, grew up with these kids, when we were here before, when they were in elementary school. So I can blend in. My wife won't let me holler and scream. She does enough of that for both of us.
Does she let you holler and scream on Sundays when you're the Eagles coach? Is that okay?
Hey, she sits on pins and needles. I do most of the hollering on Sundays, and she does all the hollering here in the freshman games.
That's a fair trade-off, I think.
That's a fair trade.
By the way, back to Ed's concussion question, did you ever, obviously your wife's been very involved in your career and everything. Did you ever keep a concussion away from a loved one, whether it be your parents or wife or anything like that?
As a joke, I would say that not that I can remember.
Okay. All right.
And his other son, their other son, plays college football, so obviously you advocate and you believe in the sport, and as you said, some of the precautions and equipment that have been developed to protect against these sorts of injuries.
I do. I really believe in football. I really believe in even the technology, as you mentioned, and the equipment with helmets. There's all types of equipment now that can help you monitor and test for head trauma in practice or in games. It is working itself down into the youth leagues, but I see it. I've seen it with my son at Stanford University, who just graduated, and now I see it at the University of Louisiana Monroe, where our second son is at playing ball. So, yeah, I love football. I love the sport. I think that this awareness is also carrying over to other sports, lacrosse, hockey, soccer. So it's the education part is the biggest thing, and I think it's spreading to multiple sports.
Doug, we started this interview talking about the unique parallel between the Eagles and the Cowboys in terms of both drafting and starting a rookie quarterback a year ago. Another interesting parallel is what happened in the draft this year, in which you sort of mirrored what the Cowboys did in the second round last year when they took Jalen Smith, who obviously had that knee injury and the nerve damage that has prevented them from getting any kind of return on their investment. You made a similar move with a cornerback, Sidney Jones, who tore his Achilles tendon in his pro day at Washington. I'm wondering, how did you justify that and weigh the risk-reward?
Yeah, it is definitely a situation where, we felt comfortable, even talking with our doctors and the teams that have worked on Sidney. We felt like, first of all, he was he's a top 10 pick in the first round. That's where we had him. We had him, extremely high, and it is unfortunate that he had the injury, because he probably wouldn't have been there even at 14 when we picked in the first round. But you look at it and you look at the longevity and picking up Rasul Douglas and now having Sidney, and getting him healthy. Just looking down the road, you got two young guys that will eventually, hopefully, work themselves into starting roles and contributors on defense that are two pretty good corners, and that's our expectation and hopes for both of those players. And so, yeah, sure, it's something that you do kind of take a risk on it, but that if you do right by the player, you don't put a timetable on injuries like this, and and hopefully the reward is you got two top-notch corners in the near future.
So if he doesn't play this year, that's just part of the risk you accepted.
Well, and I don't want to put a timetable on it. We don't know exactly. We're going to continue to do, listen to our doctors, listen to the trainers. I don't want to push anything, obviously, with this situation. So who knows? Again, there's no timetable, and we're just going to see how this thing can unfold.
Yeah, I would be careful, by the way, if y'all ever start, as Ed mentioned, following some trends set by Jerry Jones. I would.
For sure, yeah.
By the way, last thing I wanted to ask you, Doug, what is that dynamic like now? You may have heard there were some interesting things going on before you got there. My friend Howie Roseman was sort of sent to the other side of the building. He got to come back to, I guess, his old office. And, I mean, it's a very strange, you don't see that often in the NFL, what sort of happened with that whole situation.
When Chip Kelly was the coach. You're talking about when Chip Kelly was the coach.
Yeah. I thought our listeners would know that, Ed, but thank you for clarifying.
I never assume our listeners know anything.
I think
if they knew anything, they probably wouldn't be listening to us.
I think so. But you got Joe Douglas in there. How does that dynamic work? I mean, there's some people, some of my friends in the media in Philly try to watch like, oh, here's the draft cam. I don't think Doug's saying as much as I expected him to say. We sort of take wild leaps sometimes in journalism. I know that shocks you. How has that been, that dynamic been for you?
Well, I can't speak for what happened in the past. I wasn't here and all that, but I know that when I was hired, Howie was extremely involved again, and hiring Joe Douglas, obviously on the personnel side has really strengthened our group, and everything we do is a collaborative effort. Everything we do is there's a lot of dialogue with and about players, and we have a great relationship. I mean, it's been an open door policy, and even Mr. Lurie has expressed his opinions from time to time and wants to be involved. So, it's a great collaborative effort. It's great. It's a great building. We work well together right now, and we're just excited. We feel like we've put together, in the last 2 years, we've put together two really solid drafts that, last year we had 5 of our draft picks play, and hopefully we can do, minus Sydney maybe, but at the same time, maybe we can have some of our guys this year play. So it's been great the last couple of seasons, and again, just looking for great things down the road.
How many games do you have to win before you start calling Mr. Lurie Jeffrey?
I'm going to keep calling him Mr. Lurie until hopefully one day we can stand on that podium and hoist that Lombardi Trophy. That's our ultimate goal.
You can hand it to him and say, "Here, Jeffrey, I did this for you."
And I'll probably use his first name at that point. Yes.
By the way, that's something no one's ever said around here is Mr. Jones helps out every now and then.
When he wants to. He wants to be involved.
That's right. Oh, man. Well, listen, we really appreciate this, you being on the Doomsday podcast. Ed and I realized quickly what was interesting. This is a Cowboys intensive, as you figured out by the name of it, podcast. Yep. And the second one we did, where sadly Ed was sort of talking about some things going on with his career that you might have heard of, we had quite a few listeners, and we looked at the demographics of everything. Somehow we get these numbers. I don't. Ed doesn't, but somebody tells us this. And the majority of our listeners were from Philadelphia, and not the Dallas people. Although I
think they were probably the happiest people in the country to see me go, is what I think we're saying.
Yes. So.
Well, it just goes to show. I mean, again, you guys saw it at the NFL draft.
Yeah. Drew Pearson saw it.
The passion of our city and the fans, and that's great to see that y'all show has that many listeners being from Philadelphia. I mean, that just kind of shows you the fan base that we have.
Have you run those Rocky steps before?
I have. I actually have. In fact, several years ago when I was an assistant coach, family and friends would come visit and stay for home games. And of course, I had to be the tour guide. And so my wife and I would escort him down to the steps, and we would make that ascent to the top of them steps. So I've done it a few times now.
Did you do the whole Rocky thing where you put both arms in the air, or did you not go that far?
You know what? When you get to the top of the steps, if you've ever been there and you get to the top of the steps and you turn around and you're looking right down that parkway, right into Center City and the cityscape of Philadelphia, you can't help but raise your arms. So, yes, I did raise my arms.
Oh, and last thing, which cheesesteak? Are you a Geno's or a big Cheese Whiz guy or whatever that is they put on there? Which?
No, you know what? I like them all. I do like them all. So
Diplomatic.
we've hit them all. But I'm a provolone guy, so I just I get my cheesesteak with provolone and put all the onions on it. And I tell you what, it's nothing better.
Cannot have enough onions. You cannot have enough grilled onions on anything you eat.
Although you could
grilled onions on anything.
That's
Big
right.
Pancakes makes it good.
All right, Doug, give us an update on the game. They're in Morristown, New Jersey. What's the score?
All right, so we're right now we're just between innings. We're going to the top half. Morristown's coming to bat, top half of the fourth inning, and it's 4-2. We're down 4-2 right now, going into the top of the fourth.
Joel's still the pitcher of record?
7-inning game.
Joel's still the pitcher of record at this point?
Joel actually isn't pitching in this game, but he's on deck to be the relief pitcher. So he's actually kind of been warming up. So we'll see how this thing transpires.
Well, Doug, as you visit with your fellow parents there, let them know to subscribe to the Doomsday podcast on iTunes. We would appreciate that.
Thanks, Doug. We appreciate it. Great to talk to you, my friend.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate your time.
Oh, there he goes.
We'll
Thanks.
see you soon.
There he goes, Doug
Coming
Pederson.
to Jerry World soon.
That's right. The head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles signing off from Morristown, New Jersey, where he's watching his kid. And, Ed, I tell you what, you have it's time for me to deliver on a guest because let me just run through them real quick. Wade Phillips, you. Although Wade likes me a lot. Doug Pederson, all you. Dak Prescott, you. Chris Mortensen, you. I'm going to take Goose Goslin. I'm going to take Mike McIntyre,
Mike McIntyre is totally yours.
head coach of Colorado. Yeah. And I'm going to take next week's guest. We had last night, Jalen Smith is ready to roll coming up. So I think next week.
See, I don't promote people on the show until we've already done the interview. So I think you have engaged in some high-risk Jalen Smith activity yourself here, not unlike the owner of the Cowboys himself. Like, to go out and I'm not sure which is a bigger risk, proclaiming that you're going to get Jalen Smith, who doesn't really want to talk to the media until he's back to full speed, as Matt has now just done, or draft Jalen Smith, who cannot walk, let alone run down the league's greatest ball carriers, as Jerry did with the second-round pick.
You know, you raise a fair point. I'm just going to say I'm going to close this deal. And it would be one of the first ones I've closed in a while. But I'm going to get this thing done. And once again, boy, appreciate everybody part of the Doomsday podcast. And there was our interview of Doug Pederson.
I'm sorry, baby, that's just the way it goes.
Catching it at its apex is too complicated?
Yeah, Ed, I mean, I don't know if you need to go that far. I think high pointing a ball is fine. Now, Ed, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't, first of all, thank all the folks that have subscribed. That's free, by the way.
Thank you.
To subscribe on iTunes, and Apple Podcast, of course. And for people that have iPhones, and I've had to tell people this, I'm not trying to make a joke here. There are folks of all ages that I've had to say, hey, give me your iPhone. I don't have an iPhone. I've got an Android. I was like, give me your iPhone. And they don't even know they have the little podcast app on there.
Right.
It's so extremely easy. And you go to your search, and then our thing pops up. And the easiest thing is to go ahead and just subscribe. And then
Which is free.
Everything, yeah, it's all free. That's all free. But so that's Apple Podcast. Stitcher is another way. Google Play, iHeart. These are all the various ways you can hear us. Thanks to Spoke Media.
We have an email address you might want to mention.
Oh yeah, it is the Doomsday Podcast at gmail.com. Advertisers, we'll get back to you the quickest. But no, everybody, we appreciate hearing from everybody.
And who wants to sponsor the
even
Jalen
haters.
Smith segment next week?
Let's nail that down. Let me get that thing nailed down, and then we'll get a sponsor for it. That's fine. All right, that has been the Doomsday Podcast. Peace out. Say goodbye, Ed.
Goodbye, Ed.
And the streets are all but empty, the bars have all shut down, and it's hard to find a friend inside this godforsaken town.
And so you'll see guys who go for 25 years in a row because they're afraid they won't get invited back if they miss a year.
Well, I'm going to say yes every year.
Yeah, it's that great an event. I think Alex has played in it before.
Alex Smith went last year.
Yeah.
He's going again this year. I saw the list. Travis Kelce's going. I think Marvin Lewis from Cincinnati is going to go. Mike Zimmer's going to go.
Wow.
I know Trent Dilfer's going to be out there. So there's a few NFL.
Elway
NFL
usually
guys.
plays out there. Shanahan usually plays out there. Yeah. Hey, I want to introduce you while we're talking about celebrities who are not good at golf. Let me introduce you to Matt Mosley, my colleague and co-partner in this endeavor here.
Walmart Plus members save on meeting up with friends. Save on having them over for dinner with free delivery with no hidden fees or markups. That's groceries plus napkins plus that vegetable chopper to make things a bit easier. Plus, members save on gas to go meet them in their neck of the woods. Plus, when you're ready for the ultimate sign of friendship, start a show together with your included Paramount Plus subscription. Walmart Plus members save on this plus so much more. Start a 30-day free trial at walmartplus.com. Paramount Plus Essential Plan only. Separate registration required. See Walmart Plus terms and conditions.
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.